Hey everybody!
Greetings!
And welcome to the Don't Starve OP tier list updated. I don't know, it's been like 2 years since I've done a full tier list. In any case, yeah, I'm gonna be doing the whole tier list over again, re-ranking all of the characters. Some obviously won't change, but quite a few have changed since my last tier list. One more thing, remember that this tier list, despite me basing it off of factual traits of each character, is still subjective, and your tier list might vary slightly or greatly from my own. Also, according to YouTube statistics, only about a small percentage of people that watch my videos are actually... Alright, starting off with Wilson, the Prime Minister of C tier. The most average character in the game deserves a C tier ranking. Wilson has always been average, and always will be average, probably. Grows beard for bears and suicide statues and no downsides. C tier. Next up, Willow, and to be honest, after around tier years since my original OP guide on Willow, and attempting to exploit some of her other uses like Bernie, I still just think she's below average. I still don't think she's above a Wilson because the Bernies aren't really a help in any fight unless you turn off shadows altogether, and her sanity gain from fire is mitigated by the fact that she gains and loses sanity faster regardless. So, D tier, but you could put her in C tier if you really want. Wilbur, fucking S tier. Wilbur is not only the fastest base character in Don't Starve, but is also the permanent leader of the best faction in single-player Don't Starve. Primates are one of the only factions in Don't Starve that stay useful throughout the entire game as both fighters and resources. Primates are one of the only creatures in the game that can harvest twigs and grass tufts, and they can collect them super quickly.
For free, might add.
And they can be created in such sporadic number with both tanking, ranged, and kiting attack patterns. Pretty much any boss fight benefits you by having them around. So yeah, Wilbur stays in S tier. Walani and Woodlegs. Honestly, they're both just bad. They're both just bad fucking characters. But they're bad with a reason. They are both meant for Shipwrecked. The problem is, even in Shipwrecked, they aren't great. Woodlegs has an infinite shot boat that he has access to instantly, which I would personally say puts him above Walani when it comes to Shipwrecked, whereas Walani benefits from not having her brains draining out every time she's not in the water. The problem is Walani, on top of having lower health, also has a 1.1 hunger modifier. If you need a comparison, that is half the hunger modifier of Warley, whereas her only benefit outside of Shipwrecked is she drives off quicker. Yeah, the rain most likely is never an issue for single-player Don't Starve, and even it's not enough to be more frail overall, and simultaneously a drain on fucking resources.
What up, you fat piece of shit?
Get the fuck off my property!
Woodlegs D tier, Walani F tier. Warbucks is still gone forever, so F tier.
There's no light! There's only fire!
He used to be an A tier character, but he's too busy rotting in hell now to make room for Wormwood. Wheeler, thick thighs, faster than average, sliding into DMs like butter and shooting first because she brought a fucking gun with her.
Keep it up and down up!
Very good character. For one, her dodge is up there with Wortox's teleport and Wanda's King Crimson, as it makes her completely invulnerable for one instance. She's naturally faster. Second, she has a gun that can be fueled with pretty much anything. It's not quite as efficient as Walter's slingshot, but it makes up for in the damage that it does. Her downsides is she only has 100 health, which isn't great, but it's not terrible either. And her real downside is she has 3 less inventory spaces. However, even with those, her pros are still just far too good, and she belongs firmly in A tier. Next up, we have Wagstaff.
Oh my god, Wagstaff, Don't Starve.
Now, Wagstaff Don't Starve did appear in Don't Starve Together, but not as a playable character and thus has no effect on gameplay there. He's got decent stats and tools as long as you don't mind looking through a visor lens for the rest of eternity. It kind of sucks as often you have to either waste a head slight or go partially blind, just so you can use other items, sometimes life-saving items like a gas mask. He can also see behind ancient walls and collect bonuses from certain objects, which are all good, but at the end of the day, it's still not great for his head slot waste. C tier. Okay, we're done with single-player characters. Back to the DST part of this video. Next up, Maxwell, B tier. Now, Maxwell is one of the hardly ever get hit playstyles due to the fact that his health is half the average. This is not my preferred playstyle, and I don't usually play him often because of this. The question is, do his pros make up for the health loss? And I would say yes, but not by much. Sanity is never an issue for Maxwell, as his natural sanity regen buffers through most anything. Secondly, he can summon shadows to do manual labor for him, which does save some time, but it's nothing crazy. The shadow faders are also just okay. However, unless he has shadow armor, which happens to actually be a pretty good preferred armor for him, most higher tier bosses will be able to kill him in one single attack pattern if he gets caught. B tier.
Oh! I've taken a grievous wound!
Wickerbottom.
I love books.
She has a pretty neat set of abilities. She can make her own cheap pan flute book equivalent, she can lightning spam to charge WX, she can grow a lot of food too, which was nerf, and she can use tentacle spikes to make boss traps. All of these are pretty decent, but like Winona's crafts, they still require a lot of resources in order to function. Her cons aren't too bad either, so I would say she still belongs in B tier. And speaking of Winona, I'm gonna go ahead and pop her in B tier too. As both Winona and Wickerbottom excel at making traps that absolutely destroy certain bosses, though they just require a pretty large amount of resources to function. She also has tape that she can make to repair clothing items and fix boat leaks. Her only downside being she loses like 5 hunger when she crafts. So yeah, they're both B tier. Next up, Wendy, and to be fair to all the Wendy mains, I think in the past I was slightly overcritical of Wendy's Abigail, and she's actually better than I once thought she was. To begin with, Wendy is still pretty weak alone with the damage reduction, but with Abigail, she's strong enough to stand up to quite a different amount of bosses, including some of the more strong bosses like Bee Queen, thanks to Abigail's AoE. This is actually surprisingly effective when there's more than one Wendy around, as multiple Abigails will absolutely shred minion hordes. This makes Wendy's main problem actually just farming pip spooks for the spectral cures and the nightshades. Other than that, yeah, Wendy's a solid B tier character. Wortox, auto S tier.
Where I'm from, we call him Demon.
Please put me down, I'm very tired.
Pogger's Arbiter. Wortox has pretty much been a monster ever since he was first added. His teleport, heal, and generally higher health out of the gate still remains without a doubt one of the greatest pros a character can have in all of Don't Starve. His cons aren't too bad either, being a monster. Pigmen, Bunnymen, and Catcoons attack them. All of those 3 factions aren't that great anyways. His only real con is his gains from food are halved, which is, yeah, it's pretty bad. But it's completely mitigated by the fact that he should be healing with only souls anyways. So yeah, still fucking S tier. Walter, he's got a gun.
I have a gun!
I'm literally just gonna repeat exactly what I said last time. He's just a good general character so long as the fight doesn't require a melee fight. And Walter being the fire truck monster truck he is, he can force a fight to be at range by using both allies or marble sculptures. Essentially with his ranged weapon, he can pretty much easily solo most bosses in the game, given that you don't mind sitting behind a statue for half an hour holding down the F key. He also doesn't lose sanity unless he gets hit, so just stay at a range and you'll be fine. A tier. Warley, the Cooking Master. Ugh, fuck Warley. Okay, Warley has so much use as a team player, arguably has more use as a team player than any other character in the game. He's the one character who can provide quality healing, armor, and 2 damage buffs to pretty much any other character. However, how fucking ever, he is so fucking mutilated as a single player character that his buffs almost aren't even worth it. This con is not only is his hunger naturally faster, but when he eats the same dish in a 2-day time span, the dish loses effectiveness. And yeah, hunger-wise, this isn't too much of a problem, just only eat meaty stew and meatballs. But if you're trying to stock up on healing foods, like, for instance, the Sacred Master Pierogi, you're going to be reduced from the original 40 healing to as much as only 12 health pierogi. That is so bad, that is literally a fucking sin. So yeah, Warley, great team player, horrible solo player, D tier. Actually no, I need to emphasize, Warley is definitely better than Willow, so yeah, Warley can move up to C tier. Okay, Wigfrid. Wigfrid is A tier, but she's bottom of A. Her only eating meat quirk really isn't bad, especially since the majority of good foods in Don't Starve are meat, but require vegetables to be made anyway, so it's really not that bad. She also has a really good helmet that she can craft more of. The spear isn't bad either, but there's also better options. And she has a lifesteal attack, which makes her really good at fighting. And thanks to her rework, with the heart-rending ballad during a fight, Wigfrid can start rapping hard. And give not only an increase to her lifesteal, but lifesteal to others. Good character. Woodie, oh Woodie, my Woodie.
My Woodie.
Woodie is good ever since his rework. Good scout, good for chopping wood, the moose form isn't terrible in a fight, and he's just pretty decent overall. Generally good character, he also has increased loyalty timer for followers, and his only real downside is he loses all his hunger when he transforms back from his forms. B tier character. WX78 the android.
I'm the android sent by
Wagstaff don't starve.
Is just once again still S tier. He's just always been on the scale of best character in the game. He can reach the highest base stats of any character, the second highest speed. He's great at fighting in runes because if he's struck by lightning, he generates his own light field and he can heal himself pretty much every time he kills a clockwork. Oh, and he takes damage when he's wet, which is basically nothing. Yeah, so high S tier character. Wurt. Now, admittedly, I think I was being a little too generous to Wurt in the past just because I liked playing as her, but to be fair, she is still decently good. Addressing her main debuff, only eating plants is pretty bad, you'll hear no objection from me. However, I still think this is avoidable as you can pretty much entirely rely on trail mix for healing early game, and by mid game you'll likely have a potato farm set up. As for her buffs, I think Wurt really just rewards base building and stockpiling. She gets a massive buff for making a Merm King, along with access to a fearless minion, and both of those are just great. She can also easily manage her sanity with a fish. Pigs also hate her, but she simultaneously has access to a stronger, more competent faction right out of the gate. So yeah, I'd still say she's at least B tier. Oh shit, I just realized I skipped Wilba. Okay, I've done some thinking about Wilba, and I actually have an opinion on her now, and I have to say it's B tier. It's low B tier, like the bottom of B tier, but it's B tier. She's a pig faction leader, so not only does she receive gifts from pigs everywhere, but she can also pillage the entire hamlet village without punishment. Her werepig form, I would say, is best used as a last resort in boss fights. For instance, if you run out of healing food and armor and you're low health, you can just pop 2 monster foods and go, boom, fuck you, round 2. All you have to do to not accidentally trigger it is to not do anything during full moons, and don't eat monster foods, which really isn't too hard to do. And I would say it's a decent buff for the price of only having Wolfgang equivalent sanity drain. So yeah, B tier. When the Wanda is so... Okay, now Wanda is S tier. I would say that she's either high A or low S. Probably about on the same level as Wolfgang, maybe slightly lower or higher depending on circumstance. She can make really reliable teleporters, she can revive people for free, she has a teleport ability that lets her dodge attacks, she has a great weapon that deals more damage as her health gets lower. But I want to clear up a misconception of Wanda that I think a lot of people miss, and that is the idea that Wanda is only a glass cannon. This simply is not true. Despite her age meal only having 60 health, she actually takes only 40% of that damage, meaning she actually has 150 actual damage she can take in total, or 2.5 health for every 1 age. And accounting for the Ageless Watch, which restores 8 years every 2 minutes, and how cheap the Ageless Watch is, you can permanently deal with any and all health problems as early as day 3. So let's say you get 5 Ageless Watches and bring them to the class fight. That is 1 age restored every 3 seconds, and that's not even accounting for everything you dodge and your armor. So unless you get hit every single attack, which almost never happens, you are effectively invulnerable. And lastly, when she takes a hit that does quite a lot of damage, for instance, the Celestial Champion's attack rush, she can simply use a watch halfway through taking that damage and shut it down entirely. Wanda, S tier. Okay, Wolfgang. Wolfgang used to be an absolute powerhouse, and quite frankly, he still is, just at the cost of speed. He needs to make actual crafts now in order to deal with the speed-demanding fights, which isn't too terrible, but it's definitely a nerf, and he has less health overall now. But with his nerf, he can consistently deal a maximum double damage attack with every single attack, and he can carry heavy items easily. That means shadow pieces without a beefalo, and more damage overall. So yeah, he's weaker now, but guess what? He's still fucking S tier. Okay, Weber. Oh man, this is gonna be a hard one. But I think he's S tier. Okay, no, maybe he's A tier. I struggle to put him in S, but would consider him a candidate for S tier is because with his rework, he became pretty much a direct counter to the Bee Queen boss, who is famously known for being a pain in the ass to fight. On top of that, he can make the spiders friendly towards other players now too, and that the nurse spider is just fucking amazing. The problem is, even with the healing armor and cave spiders, spiders just aren't immune to fear, unlike merms and lobsters, and they still aren't tanky enough to handle most AoE monsters. But is it enough to move Weber alone into S tier? I don't think it is. I could see someone putting him in S tier, but for me, I think he's good to stay at the top of A. Next to last, we have Wes, and what do I even fucking say about Wes now? I can't even put him in S tier as a joke because someone will think I'm serious. Okay, let me just cut to the chase. He is still F, but he's F tier with some purpose. The funniest thing about Wes's rework is not only did it make him no longer a drain on resources, but there is actually somewhat of a reason to play as him now. Let me explain.
I'm going to stop you right there because you're judging. You need to allow me to explain myself.
Essentially, Wes can craft cheaper walking canes the moment he spawns, and yes, he can give them to other players. That's fucking great considering the cost is so low and they double as map markers. He has a few other okay crafts, but another good one is the party balloon. Essentially, it lets Wes store some of his own sanity into a balloon, and when something pops it, everybody gets the sanity it had. So if you really need to just store fucking raw sanity like a honeypot ant, or you need walking canes the moment you spawn, consider taking one of these things along with you as a pet. Honestly, Westmanes are just cute now. But when it comes to single player solo status, Wes is still F tier. The walking cane and sanity storage isn't enough to make up for all of his inhibiting traits and lower overall damage. F tier. And lastly, Wormwood, the spiritual successor of Warbucks.
Where's Warbucks? What the fuck? What the fuck happened to Warbucks? What the fuck?
And quite frankly, despite Wormwood not getting a direct rework ever, the slight additions to his character have let him do good enough to put himself high on C tier. Maybe even B tier if you wanted. His ability to now completely control his speed buff and use it for fights lets him actually now move past his horrible con of not receiving healing for food. He's now strong enough to stand up to bosses even like Dragonfly just because of his speed. And even though he still doesn't have great in-fight healing, he can make his own healing with compost bins. That combined with living logs and bramble armor for crowd control and decent damage, Wormwood's finally exceeded Warbucks' expectations, and I think we can finally let Warbucks rest.
Reset! Up!
But if you enjoyed this tier list today, make sure you smash that comment button and let me know whether or not you enjoyed it. Because since the dislike removal, dislikes mean nothing now, therefore so do likes. And yeah, I just appreciate your own opinion and thoughts on my tier list here today. But anyways, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you let me know. And as always, peace, peace.
It is I, Norwell.
What?
I died. I'm a phantom now.
What happened?
Well, the council convened and we all voted to open the door.
What?
We thought we'd find